Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. Today's conversation on Unmute Yourself is with Anand Rao, originally a Cambridge-educated theoretical physicist and oil industry professional. Anand brings over 25 years of experience in personal development, blending the analytical rigor of science, what works, what doesn't, with the heart of personal growth. He spent 2 decades in corporate consulting before shifting his focus to transformational work. He's now a coach, consultant, and trainer, and Anand draws on developmental psychology with lots of other modalities, such as somatic practices, to help individuals deepen self awareness, clarify their path, and unlock their full potential, both professionally and personally. Now, I've read that so as not to leave out anything important or vital, but certainly from a personal perspective, you might think that a conversation with a Cambridge-educated theoretical physicist could have the potential to be quite dry, but certainly far from the case. And yeah, it was such a joyful conversation with Anand. I hope that you enjoy his deep and profound insights. Anand Rao, welcome, welcome.
Hello.
It's so lovely to have you here. This is one of those, again, one of those magical connections through the magic that is Substack. So I'm really, really grateful. I was preparing for this morning and reading your Substack publication, and I was kind of blown away by how similar the themes are that run through your publication and that run through mine, all about the art of showing up in our most authentic way, be coming back to the truest version of ourselves. And this, it seems to be like such a huge theme at the moment on kind of breaking through fear, kind of unshackling from the chains of suppression, being our true authentic selves. Why do you think that is such a huge theme for humankind right now? And what does it even mean to be our most authentic selves? I mean, someone could say, shout at me in the street and just say, well, I was just being my authentic self. So I would love to.
I was just sharing my truth.
That's it. That's
No,
it.
I think you were
Yes.
just being offensive.
Yes, exactly that. So, yes, why is it such a huge theme? Because I see it popping up everywhere, working through fear, all of this. But what does it even mean? You know,
Well, okay. So,
just a
hang on,
few, just a little questions.
yeah, yeah, just little things, little things. So, I don't know. We can play. We can explore it. So, for me, I think this at the moment because of I'm just going to go at lots of different angles that are just coming up to me. One is AI and the fact that the fake versus real has become a really big topic, right? And I think increasingly I see it with a friend of mine. My next door neighbor has daughters and they're in their 20s, and so earlier and earlier people are like, well, I don't know about you. I'm in my 50s now. So it was like, put your head down, wake up when you're 45 and have a midlife crisis. That was kind of, that was the deal. Right. But
Yeah,
now,
it's
earlier and
about right for
earlier.
me. Yeah. A few years shy, yeah, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's earlier and earlier people are questioning like what am I meant to be doing? What can I do in an era of choice? And even this, right? So we couldn't do this kind of thing. It would be TV shows and big, huge things. So the fact that you can actually just whip up a camera and say, okay, I'm on YouTube or Substack or some live platform and say this is me. I think that's just brought it right to the front, and also just this crisis of meaning. I can't remember who calls it that. I think it's John Vervaeke, who talks about the crisis of meaning. The earlier and earlier people are kind of questioning, well, what's it all about? I think that's what's happening. Um,
Mm.
and there's versions of authenticity of I'm just going to share everything that's inside of me. My joke for this is because I work with a lot of Americans is Boulder and Sedona. I'm just sharing my truth. And then there's people like uh, uh, JP Sears, who does these parodies on, I'm not spiritual, I'm ultra spiritual. And
Oh yes, I've
right,
seen them. Yeah, yeah.
right.
I love
So
them.
yeah.
Oh dear me. Oh God. God, tell me, always pull me up by the short and curlies if I ever turn into one of them.
And I think that also so that is the breakdown of like going into an institution, into a job, following other people's rules. And so the conversation is probably earlier about what does it mean to be yourself? What is authentic to you? And also, I think it's just a basic human desire to be free, to feel free, to want to be free, right? And I think that's a critical piece of it as well. And what does that even mean, right? So,
Yeah. What is freedom? What does freedom mean to you, Anand?
well, there's the immature version, which is I can just do whatever I want whenever I want. Right?
Yeah.
So I say immature, but we all need we all strive for that, want that more than most people than we have. But I think the other is radical acceptance of life as it is, and certainly as I get into 54, so get into the third act of life, going, well, actually, you start to realize there's certain things you can't change. And it's no, I love this model called leave, change, accept, right? So sometimes, it's really valuable to try and change something because it's changeable, right? And rather than being resigned to it, doesn't make any sense. So making some effort to make changes and evolve ourselves is fantastic. But if we're constantly thinking, oh, well, I'm going to be great when I get there, and when I get the big house and the big car and all the rest of it, and these days it's, well, when I arrive at internal peace or enlightenment or awakening, that's just the same thing, right?
Yeah.
That maybe just the paradox is just accepting who we are, warts and all today, as we are. I love that film with Jack Nicholson, As Good as It Gets. What
Right.
if this is as good as it gets? So can you be happy with that? And if the answer is no, then this is another little piece where we're creating our own suffering. And then knowing when to leave is all about boundaries, and like maybe you're in the wrong job for too long, and you just need to walk away from things. So I really like that model, because sometimes people are using one of those three, change, accept, leave, when they probably one of the other two might be really helpful.
And I think you have touched on it, but what is it to be our truest self? Where do we even start with that? Go. Just for anyone listening, sorry, anyone listening? Just thousands
you
of
listening.
people.
No, we're only talking to one person. You that's listening. We care about you. And this is this individuals, right, versus the masses. I think this is really important these days. Anyway,
yeah. That's very beautiful. But I was just going to say, we had a chat last week, didn't we? And it was so conversational. It just flowed. It was so wonderful. And now, because I've kind of come up with questions,
something like man makes plans and God laughs. Something like that.
Yes, that's it. Right. Yes. Oh dear. So yes.
So here's a couple of thoughts on that. One is the desire to be able to say what one wants when one wants. Years ago, I used to teach, very briefly, but I used to teach public speaking. And the desire was to be able to, I went to Toastmasters because I had my own, like, terrified of public speaking and these kinds of things. And the desire was the desire to want to be able to express oneself, right? This is Substack all over, right? The freedom to be oneself and share what you have, and believe that you have something to share, right? And I think everyone has something to share. There's a really nice quote from James Joyce, who said, I never met a boring human being, right? And so if you dig deeply enough or just ask some questions, you find everyone's got a unique and fascinating history that's being discounted sometimes, right? Rather than, oh, well, I didn't do this, or I should have done that, or compared myself to this person, rather than, well, everyone's story is absolutely, super unique. I remember I was in this workshop once, and we had to put our hands on the other person's shoulders and tune into them. And this was this woman who, she must have been in her 70s, late 60s, early 70s. And it did feel like a scene out of that film Unbreakable, when he touches somebody and he can see their entire life from birth to death. Right? It was a bit of a wacky experience. You kind of get that, oh my God, everyone has the I can't remember which part of the brain, the default mode network, has been making narratives your whole life, telling this amazing story that is you. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
And beautiful.
So I think, yeah, and beautiful. And I think sharing the freedom to share that with others, and not all these social conditioning and restrictions, and you can't say this and you should say that and you have to say this, right? Freeing ourselves from all that programming from school, sit down, shut up, speak when spoken to, all that stuff. I think it's a basic human desire. And I think then at that point it becomes, well, hang on a minute. What, in terms of authenticity, maybe we don't share everything inside us. Maybe that's a choice, because I think that when you're with people, right, part of what comes out of you is because you're together, right? The conversation we had last week, which was joyful and playful and went all over the place, and history and into the future, was some kind of co-creation, right? Of I found myself laughing a lot more because you laugh a lot more, right? So we bring out these things in each other. I think
Yeah.
there's no
Oh,
there's nothing in there like, let's open the box and see what's inside there. I think we're
yeah.
spontaneously responding moment to the world
Yes.
and the context we put ourselves in. So.
So, in line with that spontaneity, I'm just going to read my next question. Just no, but I did want to quote something of yours that I loved this morning, that I read in one of your letters on Substack, and I. Well, I'll tell you why I love it in a minute. It says, sometimes we need the structured clarity of cognitive understanding, while other moments call for the fluid wisdom of bodily awareness. And then you go on to say that the art lies in knowing how to move between these approaches seamlessly, like it's easy breezy.
Yes, of
Which I
course.
do. But I absolutely love that, and it puts me in mind of a quote that I use again and again and again by Dr. Dane here. He speaks about understanding being inferior to awareness, because understanding is a function of our mind, whereas awareness is a function of our being. And so that for me is the fluid wisdom of bodily awareness. But I am also huge on the importance of our language, becoming aware of huge generalizations. I'm just not creative. Oh, I could never do that. These kinds of things. And
Mm.
so I'm kind of as you say, it is like a very delicate dance between the two. I would love for you to talk to us more about that, if you feel to.
Okay, so here's what comes to mind, which is that in the climbing out of mind and programming and structure and the rest of it, many of us find ourselves, our freedom, in this flow and beingness and the responsivity in the moment. But then we go, now I don't want to do my taxes and I don't want to make a plan for my business, and right. And so that's what I mean about like being able to have both. That how do we create structures that are useful to us, right, in our lives, without feeling inhibited or restricted by them? And I think it's a normal process. Actually, I think people fight and they climb out of these rigid structures of meaning making, but the next step is not to abandon, like, throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think there's this phrase, the mind is a terrible master but a faithful servant, right? And so rather than completely like chucking away all understanding, actually, and Krishnamurti, who's a spiritual teacher, said this. He goes, thought is dead, in the sense that like the minute you've constructed something in meaning and rigid, that it's not alive anymore.
Right.
But I do think just to function in this world, and practicality, that flowing moment to moment to moment somehow needs to be woven or harmonized with the ability to be, rational, logical, and strategic and tactical without feeling like, ugh, right? How many people on Substack go, oh, I have to post this week, right? Rather than finding that spontaneous joy but also equally having the almost the structure be supportive of creating, you know.
Yeah, some fantastic thoughts there, and that leads me, because one of your publication or one of your websites is called The Inner Entrepreneur. That's a huge part of what we do, as we mentioned at the outset. We didn't mention it at the outset, but I'm going to put it in after the fact. And so we we know that the doing the inner work and making the unconscious conscious, kind of moment by moment, day by day, can be an incredibly non-linear, squiggly, often excruciating journey. It's certainly
sometimes excruciating, sometimes joyful,
sometimes freeing and ecstatic and beautiful, and then other times excruciating,
sometimes horrifically painful.
That's it, yes. And so when we're endeavoring then to set up a business and to actually put our magic out into the world to be seen, for us to be seen, I feel like then it's kind of, and also to receive from that, to receive an income and to kind of build something. I feel like it's next level kind of growth in terms of seeing where our limiting beliefs are at and our pain points are and whatnot. What makes that so hard, do you think?
I think it is this socialization again, right? So I work with a fair number of Americans, and there is a contrast between kind of Brits and I was talking to a friend of mine in Australia as well, of the don't in what I find in America is that, or with working with Americans, you can actually put forward what you've said, what you've done, in a more fair representation, whereas in aspects, parts of England and Australia, to stop showing off, don't be such a that's arrogant kind of thing. And in a way, we do ourselves a disservice by trying to follow that rules of I want to fit in, which is normal, right? I don't want to be this arrogant human. I was checking political correctness of your podcast there. So TWAT. But anyway, right. So I think that's it. That what makes it hard is that when these things come up internally, right, that we fight with them, right? That we think there's something in there that's opposing us. And there's a very different relationship to going, well, the whole inner entrepreneur, the idea is that use all of that stuff that comes up in relationship to your business, not as obstacles or barriers or inconveniences, but this is your growth and development. If you went to the gym and you started to try and lift some weights and someone came along helpfully and went, no, let me just take all of those off you, right? Then you wouldn't get any stronger. So it's a very different, I think of it as a very different relationship to that you're growing your business is your personal development path, is your spiritual path, right? So there's nothing wrong with the stuff that shows up. And in a way, by engaging with the challenges, the struggles, the wrestles of working towards putting your work out into the world, even if it's in small pieces to begin with, and moving through some of those things. And I think we talked about emotional regulation tools. We can talk about that a little bit. Is as you clear all these blocks and resistances, your consciousness is giving you the perfect curriculum to work through, right? Rather than just thinking of some kind of outcome of I'll be successful when, kind of the Western world's all very kind of outcome focused. We go, no, I'm going to engage in this activity of wanting to share my world, my life, my work freely with people. And in the blocks and resistances that come up, they come up as kind of bodily sensations and feelings and emotions. And learning to be with those, being compassionate, not fighting with them, and working how to release and dissolve them rather than getting annoyed with them and angry and resisting and pushing and forcing. That actually we cultivate our own freedom. That's what the idea of the inner entrepreneur is, that use your business as your spiritual path, as your personal development path. And then nothing's out of place, nothing's missing, right? Yeah. So this is how I think of it.
I love that, and it's funny because I was leading a meditation just recently, and I said about the sitting with our emotions and feelings, or a trigger if there's been if our nervous system has been activated, and kind of sitting with that for 90 seconds can, or more, 90 seconds, can kind of enable it to move through our system, so we're not dragging it around with us all day unconsciously, and then we suddenly snap, or we
Sure.
kind of get angry in traffic, or whatever the case. And someone said, oh, 90 seconds, that's not long, is it? And my experience is that actually sitting with an emotion, when my nervous system has been activated, sitting with that for 90 seconds is, I will do everything to avoid it. I'll, scrolling on the phone, or I'll think, oh, it's time to clean the bath, or, whatever. Actually
Yeah,
sitting
I think the
with that.
roof needs to be redone.
That's it. And 90 seconds sitting with real stored gunk, that's perhaps been there decades, can be very difficult. And yet, oh my God, the magic when we're able to, and to be able to, oh, it's just the pockets of space that open up within is just not, it never ceases to amaze me, the magic of that. I just love that.
Yeah, I do think here, this is where some of the emotional regulation tools can really come in and help with that. So let's say we're sitting with an emotion, literally just putting one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly while doing that. Because what it does is some of the attention goes, the brain goes, oh, there's something happening with the hands. We've got lots of senses on our hands. And so it makes it easier to go between what's going on in our emotions and feelings and thoughts, and the sheer sensory, this idea the body is always in the present, right? And the present moment. Another one, which I think they put the TM on the end of havening, but basically it's a whole protocol. So you can look it up, but it's just even just stroking down the outside of the arms while feeling that feeling seems to allow the meridians to open, the energy to clear, the actual shifting. It releases serotonin. It does all kinds of things in the brain. There's something about using somatic methodologies while being with emotions and feelings can work. The other is what you're saying is the capacity to just to be with it, right, without trying to change it or shift it.
Yeah.
The accept is valuable. The other thing you can do, which is a really cool kind of twist on this, is rather than trying to be with the feeling itself, be with the feeling of how much you want to get rid of the feeling. That's usually way higher, right? So it's almost like a secondary response. And sometimes that can just unlock the system really, really quickly as well.
Being with the feeling of wanting to be rid of the feeling.
Right.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Right. Can you release the resistance first
right. Right. That's so interesting. And so for me, it will be, I will sit with the color of it, or where it is in my body, or what, give it a texture or a sound, and it's that helps me to kind of work through it. And sometimes I'm not able to do it. And in that case, then I will focus on a sound for 30 seconds, or a texture between my fingers for 30 seconds, and just kind of keep bringing my attention back to that. And that just brings me back into my body, kind of, rather than being up here, which is what, oh no, sorry, go on.
No, you're right. Yeah. And what you're saying is through practice, you get better at it. It's a skill. It's a skill. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. A skill that can absolutely be cultivated. It's kind of, it's wonderful. Anyway, I was going to quote to you something else that I read, and it kind of fits in with that. You said these are your words, I'm quoting back. It's worth emphasizing that the ultimate art in personal development lies in supporting natural change, working with our system rather than forcing it. What does forcing it look like, and what does working with natural change look like?
Okay. I was listening to going, oh, that sounds good. Wonder who wrote that. Oh, it was me. Right. So
I'm quite good.
Maybe I should go back and read what I've written. No, I do. But you know, it is weird sometimes, and you probably have this when you're leading a group, right? You do and say things that just comes out of you and through you, and at the end you go, okay, I suppose I better go back and find out what I said. So I think if you look at like personal development metaphors, right? There's loads of seminars out there, break through barriers, get over hurdles, smash obstacles, right? Rather than, well, who is the one creating all these constructions of mind and ideas of resistances and barriers and blocks and hurdles, and then believing them to be real, right? So one of the things that, and it's kind of a precursor to the question, which is that most of us, when we were kids, like 4 or 5 years old, got the classic is a cardboard box, and now it's a truck, and now it's a fire engine, and now it's a castle, and and it can be anything, and then Piaget's stages of child development. At a certain point, kids are like 9 or 10. They're really into facts. Like if you say, what's Uncle Jimmy's got a big house and he's got a car and he's got 2 dogs. It's all very factual. And if you say something like the sky is green, let's imagine the sky is green, a 4 or 5-year-old go, yes, let's, right? 9-year-old go, no, it's blue, right? They've already arrived at that place of like right, wrong, good, bad, and fact checking. But actually, if you think about it, adults, like most of us as adults, all of us really, haven't yet fully got the distinction between what's real and what's imagined. Because if we really had, we would know the difference between something we're imagining, like a limiting belief or a fear or irrational fear or concern. So some part of the brain isn't making that distinction, right? And we're acting as if something we're imagining is real. Like, oh, if I share myself on Substack, someone will read it and then they'll think this. Like all of that is like an imagination. And therefore I probably won't, right? And if we can see it for what it is, which is this imagined construction, right, and we can tell the difference that that's not actually happening right now, right, and it's we're modeling the world, then a lot that can bring a lot of freedom, like a lot of dropping away. And now I've completely lost the thread of what the question was. What was
the question was I was hooked on your words. That's what it was. What was the question?
You got it on your bit of paper.
What does forcing
yes.
change look like
Right.
within our development, and what does it look when it's natural kind of a thing?
So it's assuming that any resistance, block, barrier kind of thing is, even though it's happening inside us, is outside of us, and we need to handle it, tackle it, overcome it, break through it, etc., etc. And this is kind of setting up a fight with oneself, right? And the alternative is to see through this illusion, right? This construction of mind that's being kind of seems so real, right? And the nice thing about these emotional regulation tools, just havening, is kind of stroking down the outside of the arms. Like I said, hands here, or we can just throw something from hand to hand. It's called bilateral stimulation, right? Is that the response to it calms down or settles down, right? So it goes from feeling really, really real neurologically to like more like a thought. So there's in many methodologies, there's something called SUDS, which is subjective units of distress. So someone will say, how strong is that feeling? They'll go, oh, it's an 8 out of 10, right? And if they just put, a hand on their forehead, one on the heart, and takes like 4 breaths, they'll go, oh, it's like a 4 out of 10, right? So we're actually settling down the response within our nervous system, meeting it like lovingly, rather than trying to attack it or fight with it or change it. So I think of more my methods, if you like, they're very yin, actually. They're very kind of feminine in terms of how can we do really elegant, small change, right? So my tagline is for surprisingly elegant change, rather than kind of yang, kind of smash through, break through, push through. I mean, there's a place for elegant force and a determined movement forward. But I think a lot of the times really just leaning back and listening to our system and acknowledging and letting it be what it is starts to shift it and move it and change it in a more holistic way. I
Mm.
think the
Mm.
other way, what happens very often, this kind of achiever mindset, is people are able to achieve the outcome, but they lose wholeness in it. So the example, I used to learn public speaking through Toastmasters, and two people would go up, different times, obviously, and they give a speech. And over the 10 speeches that you have to give, one person, they could do it at the end of it, but the way they did it was by building a mask, by blocking out the connection with the audience. So they can still do the activity. You went, well done, you can now do a speech. But they compromised something, which was their wholeness and their connection with the audience by building a persona, right, in order to
Mm.
function under that condition of stress. And for the other person, because it wasn't as overwhelming to begin with, they weren't picking too big a task to begin with, that somehow over that time, their nervous system went, oh, this is safe. This is actually okay. I can
Mm.
share myself with others, right? And so you see this kind of thing is if you pick goals that are too big, right? The whole thing in America at the moment is like 10x your goals and all that stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
Rather than every day do a little something that you can integrate that feels
Mm.
comfortable, right? Now, I don't subscribe to this change occurs outside your comfort zone. It's like there's
Mm.
no need to be uncomfortable while you're learning, right? Pick
Mm.
nice, small tasks that are in the category of the thing you want to learn. You can delight in the progress that you're experiencing. Right? We don't need to
Delight
make
in the
everything in.
progress. And I think there's definitely been times in the last 4 years when I've pushed too far, and then the backlash. Oh my God, I've written about it on Substack over 2 posts called The Vulnerability Hangover, because the
Right.
backlash was so severe in my system. It was just yeah, I would never want anyone to experience that, I'm just going to interrupt very briefly for 30 seconds or so with a little caveat to that I feel is important to mention, because I never want anyone to fear that stepping into their stretch zone or going after something could result in a whiplash of the nervous system. I think 3 things are important to remember here. One, in my circle or sphere, I have never met anyone who experiences the aftermath that, or has experienced the aftermath that I have in recent years in putting out my voice into the world. And for the most part, people are just absolutely overjoyed and ecstatic at having really gone for something, no matter the outcome. For me, I think the having been in such a patriarchal organization for over 4 decades of my life, where to employ critical thinking skills, to have a mind of my own, a voice of my own, to question anything, to have my own career path, all of these things resulted in lots of unconscious gunk, shall we say, around safety in the body to really bloom into who I truly am. And I think the final point to remember is, what was the final point? I can't remember. Yes, I think for me, the only way over was through. I never regret anything, because I went into every single event and situation that I did with a full, I can do this. The aftermath for me was rough, if not brutal, but I believe I had to go through that in order for my body to at some point believe, oh, it's actually safe. We're actually safe to do this. Let's go. So I just wanted to include in all of that as a little, just in case it's helpful to anyone. Okay, and back to the conversation. And when you're talking, it puts me in mind of, for example, the kind of an addiction to kind of going to, say, feel good seminars. Tony Robbins comes to mind, and you kind of come away and you're like, yeah, let's go, I'm gonna go and smash this. And then a week later you're like, oh, I just can't. And why isn't that sustainable? Because the change hasn't been created within, in that soft, in a very soft and gentle way. So I absolutely love everything that you said there. How
Actually, on that, I really liked when we had that conversation what you said about the time that you've been doing Substack and coming back to the essence of why I'm doing it. Like you told me, like it's so easy to get caught up in like how do I do this optimization and this thing and
yeah,
that
how
thing and
many
the
followers? Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I really like what you said, which is you went, oh, hang on a minute, kind of woke up and went, I'm going to come back to the reason I started this and the joy and the
Yeah.
energy and go at a kind of organic pace. I really, respect that hugely.
With that in mind, in that kind of following the nudges of joy, kind of t- kind of shifting and changing within as we do so, what your feelings on strategy as someone who's wanting to put because well, I was going to say what my sense is, but I've asked you the question. So you answer, Anand. What's your feeling on strategy versus kind of energy?
When you say strategy for,
So when I think of business courses I've done in the
okay.
last 4 years, and it feels very, very heavy, and then I'll kind of dispense with 95% of it, and I'll just kind of think, you know what, I just need to follow my own joy, my own essence. What am I feeling? And then that seems to be when that's where the magic is.
Um, I'm going to be controversial or
Okay.
not, right? Right.
Yes. Okay. Tell
However,
me. Tell me more.
I think this is a long-term strategy because what you're cultivating is your own wholeness, and I think that's the only happiness, right? That you're actually happy in your own skin, being you, decoupled from outcomes. Now, when it
Right.
comes to we like need to make a living and all the rest of it, that I think all of these things have a kind of a balance of both, and the if we're purely outcome focused, this can be disheartening because then it's just does it work, does it not work? And I think shifting that to an attitude of play and
Mm.
exploration and experimentation, right? So I'm currently in this kind of, I just started Substack like 2 months ago, 2.5 months, something like that. And
Already
so
with 2.5 million followers, I think. Don't
yeah,
you,
it's not
Anand?
bad, is it? 2.5, but I'm really disappointed because I wanted 5.
Yeah,
Right.
you'll get there. Keep following the
Right.
nudges of joy.
Right. And I have this idea, which is this: is that numbers don't mean anything because it is the old. I'm sure people have heard it. The starfish story. The guy. I'll briefly say it. The guy who's going along the beach, and there's thousands of starfish on, and he picks one up and he throws it back in the sea, picks another one up, throws it back in the sea,
Mm.
and the young guy comes along and goes, well, you never, that's gonna not going to make any difference, look at the number of starfish. And he goes, picks up one, throws it in the sea, and goes, well, it made a difference to that one, right?
Mm.
And I think of it like this: if you think about it as individuals, right, then I've got what, like 170 subscribers, something like that now, right, after a couple of months. Is these are individuals. Can you imagine in the old days if you went, I got 170 people in a room. This is a lot of
Mm.
people, right?
Mm.
And so I think we get numbed by the numbers of going 3,000 this, 5,000 that, 8,000 this. Every person who reads one of your posts and might take something from it, and then it changes something about how they think about their lives. This is meaningful, I think. And I also
Mm.
think about that if I'm going to write something, then it's going to take up someone's time, right, to read it. And it's still their choice. They're making responsibility to read things. But then it's like, well, does this thing that I've written, um, is it a good use of the human capital of hours times people in the world of this human has taken some time out to read this thing, right? And
Mm.
so all of that then dictates the the motivation for the content. And I'm not even thinking then about people, will someone sign up, will they not sign up? And I
Mm.
think that focus on value, of providing value, right, you'll find the people who will find your stuff valuable. I don't think there's any such thing as a valuable article, right? That it
Mm.
depends on the person reading it, right? If the person reading it is actually um, um, trying to solve their basic survival needs, right, then reading an article about global politics may not be of any value to them.
Mm.
So there's kind of quite a deep question going, what are the multiple, here's the shortcut. What are the multiple reasons why you're doing what you're doing? Not just one. Because if it's just success, failure, or numbers, or a living, I don't think this works. And maybe I'm a bit weird. I really enjoy making a plan, like strategizing, going, oh, this is fun. It's like making up a game. Like, what will I do next?
Right.
And it's fun because when you decouple from the outcome, will this work or not?
Yeah, definitely letting go of outcomes. Oh, such a
Big one.
huge, big. Oh yeah, that's a biggie right there. Yeah, not clinging on.
Or adding other outcomes. Right. So I'm at mid-50s, kind of realized you can't take any of it with you. Right. So a lot of stuff shifts from doing things just for outcomes to, did I spend, one of my trainers, she said, Judy Delosier, all mammals get like 2 billion heartbeats. She goes, how are you using your heartbeats? Right. And so I really like that, because it's, did you do this thing for its own sake? Right. Would you do it anyway? And of course, we still need to function in the world. But I think this is a really nice frame to go, what's the intrinsic value of doing what I'm doing, rather than, to me and to others, rather than just what will I get?
I love that. I'm going to give a reaction to the heartbeat quote. Can we? Oh, there we go. I like that. Right. So I'm going to make sure that everything is in the show notes, that for people to be directed to your magic. Is there anything in particular that you would like to share? Anything that you're offering right now that you would like to share that in particular? Please tell us.
So the primary place is that I'm kind of opening things up to is on Substack. So there's a whole bunch of free stuff on there. I probably should know my Substack off the top of my head.
I'll pop it in though. It will definitely be in there.
Okay, I'll pop it in
underneath this video.
So developmental mastery is the thing, and there's a whole bunch of free things on there. A whole series on making things easy, a whole series on manifesting, kind of different take on it, which is from the magical all the way to the super practical, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to do is invite people to a free Saturday coaching club, I call it, right? And because I think a lot of this kind of change work, and I love the fact that we're doing this, because beyond the written word, you get a vibe of people when you're connecting with them in a more, I mean, ideal is in person, but on a more kind of personal basis. And so I view Substack as, there's going to be a certain number of people where I want them to read my stuff, get some value, use it in their lives. I try and be very practical and pragmatic. And in other ways, it's like, come and join in, come and see what transformational change can look like, and especially surprisingly elegant change. This is what I'm aiming for, right? Because I don't think we still think of change as painful and difficult and hard and stressful, and I want to move it more towards play and exploration and creativity and fascination and engaging our natural ability to evolve. So this is the website is developmentalmastery.com, and there's a bunch of programs on there as well. But you can sign up for the Saturday Coaching Club there.
And I love your, I was reading all sorts of bits and bobs this morning, and I absolutely love your Substack. And I know I said before about change, development being excruciating, but I'm totally with you that it doesn't have to be, and that's another program running in me that I need to dismantle. Oh, here's to joy and play.
Yeah, well, I don't know. You seem to be doing a good job. You come across with quite a lot of joy. So,
oh, well, bless you for your joy today, and yeah, just I'm so grateful for your time. Really, really am. Thank you.
Likewise, it's been fun. That's what it should be.
Yeah, fun. All for the fun. Thanks, Anand. And yeah, any final words?
Enjoy your life.
Right.
So I love this. This is this exercise. So you put a thumb and put your fingers like this, right? Yeah, and that one down. So the thumb down on that hand with the pointy finger. Yeah, that's it. Okay, got it? All right.
Yeah.
And switch.
God.
Don't think it. Just try to do it, right? So, oh my, that's quicker than most people I've ever seen, right? So do it and then switch, right? And let it be messy and confusing and right. That's the feeling of neurons repatterning, right? And then that finger's have a look, and then that finger's out, right? Right. And notice how when we're not like, I have to get the outcome, our brain starts to, yeah. And don't go quick, like, oh no, I got it wrong. Oh no, right? Because it reveals how we are with play. So relax your nervous system, your body, right? Yeah. Yeah. All that extra tension was not needed. And like just play, right? And get really curious, right? And see how quickly our brain repatterns and how many times do we let ourselves be in this messy place of patterning rather than did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Blah blah blah. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm really like most people, they're not in that like driving, riding a bike, driving a car. Like how many times a day do you deliberately put yourself in that messy place and then not judge it? Okay, this is what it feels like to be growing and learning and evolving.